Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Soulflower Show. I'm Deborah Prinzing, and today we have a return guest. I want to welcome Leslie Bennett. Hi, Leslie.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. Hi, Deborah.
You're a return guest, but never on the video, so this is new for you.
This is so new. We all love video.
Yeah. Well, I'm delighted because we're going to show some of your work, and it's nice to have video to do that. And just to refresh
Yeah.
everybody, Leslie is the owner and founder of Pine House Edible Gardens, based in Oakland. She's the co-author of The Beautiful Edible Garden, winner of American Horticultural Society's Landscape Design Award, and founder of Black Sanctuary Gardens, which was the subject of one of our past podcasts. Leslie and her firm's work have been featured in Better Homes and Gardens, Martha Stewart Living, Elle Decor, Architectural Digest, Sunset, the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, Gardenista, and many more. And that's pretty impressive, but it's nice to have a book that collects all of the work of this amazing, talented woman. So we're going to talk about that today. Just by way of background, Leslie also has some illustrious degrees, including from Harvard University, which is why she and my husband, Bruce Brooks, kind of have a fun little Harvard thing going on. Columbia Law School and the University College of London in the fields of environmental justice, land use law, cultural property, and preservation. You live and garden, as I said, in Oakland with your two beautiful children who have cameo appearances in the pages of your new book, The Garden Wonderland. Don't you all just want to dive in here and have this be the backdrop to your life? I mean, wouldn't that be wonderful? So Leslie, welcome. And I just want to give a shout out to Julie Chai, your co-author, and Rachel Weill, your amazing photographer. I'm sure we'll hear about what it was like to work with them.
It was wonderful. We loved it. But we'll talk more.
Yeah. What is a garden wonderland? I mean, it's so hard to come up with a book title that hasn't been used, although I suppose you can't copyright titles. But what drove you to come up with that title?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that you seeing the cover of it. We really were trying to evoke this space that invites you in and has this immersive quality where you're stepping into another kind of reality. Because I think so much of our lives can feel not like that, more mundane and more just caught in the day-to-day. And I mean, for me, that's what the purpose of art is to kind of get you out of your day-to-day and sort of get you into another space where you can think bigger and better and more connected. And I think a well-designed garden can be a piece of art that you get to live with, and that elevates your thinking and illuminates things. And so anyway, so that's sort of why we chose that cover. And then the garden, the idea of wonder is really what drove me. That same thing of like how I think it's that same feeling of when you go to the ocean, or for some people it's going to the top of a mountain or looking at fire, but like where you get outside of yourself a bit and you're just like, oh, I'm just a small speck in the universe. It's okay. We're all connected. Let me find the beauty. And like that, I'll drive a couple hours to go look at the ocean to get that clarity and that lift. And I feel like if we can build some of that into our own backyards and just step out into the backyard and get that perspective shift, that makes us better people, gives us the capacity to think better, be better, do better. And I'd like that for everyone.
Wow. Well, yes, I think that we're drawn to that more than ever. Nature, but for many of us, nature is the garden. And for you primarily work with residential gardens that you're designing, right? So you're kind of coming in as like, I don't know, a cultural philosopher or therapist for families or couples or individuals who you're trying to help them attain something that's a pain point for them, right? A garden that doesn't make them happy. So that's
that's totally true. I'm so
so
interested in like home life and family life and like how does the space that we live in affect the way that we live, like the way we are to ourselves, the way we interact with each other, the way that we're connected with our communities. And I think like the way you design the inside of your house, like that really affects how I feel. It affects whether I choose to invite people over or not. And so if you can create a space outdoors that is equally supportive, yeah, it's really life changing.
Well, it's sort of it seems like it's really informed your studio and your design philosophy, because I know in past interviews we've talked about the fact that you're really trying to help people maybe reconnect with their own personal cultural background, or foods or flowers or other
Hmm.
sensory elements that maybe they didn't realize were important to them until they are have a conversation with you. So you're kind of coaxing this out of people, right? At
Yeah.
times.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, because I think that's exactly right. Because I think, when I started thinking, okay, I really want to combine food and flowers and figure out how do we make a beautiful garden that that is nice to be in and looks good and is visually inspiring, but is also food producing. And that
Mhm.
was its own journey of like learning how to do that. And then I sort of stepped into flowers and
Yay.
had some slow flowers encounters. um, had some really talented florists working on my team, and just stepped at, and I think this is a journey a lot of organic farmer people go on, is like you start with the veggies and then you meet the flowers, you fall in love. And so then we started growing a lot of cutting flowers and doing both, um, and sort of seeing the depth of that. And then sort of the next layer was, well, what does this all mean? Like, where do these foods and flowers come from? And like, yes, I love the look of this, daffodil popping up in my yard, but like, what does that mean in my heritage or my family history? Or what am I trying to create here for my kids to have memories of and to carry with them? And I think food is so often like this really evocative carrier of culture and legacy, whether it's like specific ingredients or like a simple memory of making apple pie with your mom every fall.
Yeah.
Getting to intentionally, literally grow that, plant that and grow that and decide that like that's what your kids are going to remember too from their childhood.
Yeah.
But
That's
I think that's such
beautiful.
a yeah, I find that I got really, once I realized like that's actually what we were doing, I got really excited about the capacity for gardens to be sort of like cultural treasure chests almost, where you can hold your family's culture, get to know it better. Like you might know you're from somewhere but not know that much about it, and so you get the opportunity to just live with some things and
Yeah.
learn. Yeah, and I think and a lot of people don't know really where they're from exactly, or that part of their history got lost.
There's not a 23andMe for the garden necessarily.
Yeah, so I guess just sort of embracing like the fogginess of that and picking
Yeah.
bits that you can,
Yeah.
and getting close to them. Yeah, so I love that with the garden.
Well, I was going to say you're a child of California, but you're also a child of your heritage, which is England and Jamaica. So
Yep.
maybe you could just talk a little bit about your how you've done that in your own garden, because I feel like
Yeah.
that is so relatable for people to have blended heritages, and how does everything look good together. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, I would love to talk about that. Yeah, I think yeah, a lot of the inspiration for that did come like, for sort of that concept did come from my own life and history and sort of um and I think it is interesting because there are so many people these days with blended heritage. Um and just wanting to flesh it out. Like what does it mean to be from two different places, and like how do we actually hold all those cultures within us? Um and so for me, yeah, I grew up in California, and had my parents had a front and backyard with an orange tree and some bougainvilleas, and things that I loved. I really loved those things. And when it came to looking at my own backyard, I realized I really wanted. I remembered picking those juicy oranges from my parents' tree, and I wanted that experience for myself again, because it was like a moment of pure bliss. They were the best oranges ever.
Squeezing them for juice or
Yeah,
whatever.
so good,
Yeah.
so good. And I wanted my kids to have that, just that little piece of joy in their life. So that's, and then I thought about my dad's family, who's from Jamaica, and my kid's father, who's also from Jamaica. And I have spent a ton of time in Jamaica in the last 15 years. Um, and just leaning into learning about some of the plants that grow there. And so we actually had a guava tree in our backyard. And it was funny, it was the one tree I wanted to get rid of. But my
Was it there when
ex,
you moved in?
yeah, it
Yeah.
was there. It was existing. But my ex, my kid's dad, he was like, no, he's like, we're keeping the guava. He's like, and we are going to blend guava juice every winter. He's like, because that's what I grew up doing. He's like, and I want the kids to know how to do that. I was
Guava
like,
and orange. Yeah, I love
yeah.
that.
So I was like, fine. I was like, we'll design the whole garden around your guava tree. Fine. But that it actually, I'm so glad we did. And then we added in passion fruit, we added in bananas, we added in pomegranate, we added in callaloo and sorrel. Um, and I got sorrel probably the best example. Like I grew sorrel is it's like a hibiscus, and they call it rosella as well. It's grown in Thailand. It's grown all around the world, but in Jamaica, it's a super special Christmas drink. And you brew it almost like a tea, and then you add rum and spices and nutmeg. It's so delicious, and it's literally every kid's. It's super sweet. It's every kid's favorite drink. It was my favorite drink. I never had any idea what it was. It was just this fabulous Christmas drink that I got to eat when I was with my drink with my Jamaican family. And then when I lived in Jamaica, learning how to farm, I drove past a field, a farm field where they were growing it, and I was like, stop the car! I want to see this plant. I've never seen it before, and I saw that it was 6 foot tall and it had these beautiful red flowers. But it was a 2-minute drive by stop. So then in my garden, it was so cool to have those two memories and be like, I want to grow this plant. I want to actually get to know it. I want to see what the seeds are. I want to plant it. I want to watch it grow. I want to harvest it. And then I got to do all of that with my kids, brew the drink with it. And, my niece came and taught me how to do that. And it was like, I feel like it just that particular, and now my kids know how to make it. And we
Yeah.
make that here every Christmas as well and carry that tradition on. And so I hope that is a good example of like how I think this plant can hold our connection to a place.
Yeah,
And
it's really special.
my kids who know they're Jamaican, but we only go once a year. Um, they have a really firsthand knowledge of, what that plant means, what like a living piece of our culture is, and they know that they're from somewhere, which I think
Mhm.
is really one of the most grounding, powerful things for anybody to
Mhm.
live with. And then there's the whole English side of my family, which we do rhubarb and rose and blackberries and all those things too. So
Well,
Rachel,
listening to you list off all these plants, I'm thinking, yes, they're edible. They produce fruit, or they produce some kind of, something that maybe it's a flower, or maybe it's like herbs. It's something that's got another culinary aspect.
mhm.
But they're all back to your philosophy that you want useful plants. They need to be like hardworking, so yes, they can be beautiful in landscape, but they have to maybe feed you too, or
Mhm,
you
mhm.
know bring you
Yeah,
bring you
I'm very
nourishment in many
keen on
ways.
yes. Yeah, no, I definitely have some. I think my heart is very much with food plants and with flowers that you can
Yeah.
cut and bring indoors. Um, but as any flower farmer or like any farmer will know, like those plants don't look good a lot of the times. Like those peony plants, like that's not a great
Like a
backyard.
short little moment.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks of beautiful blooms, and the rest of it, that plant's not going to actually create this environment that is beautiful to live with. So yeah, I think a lot of what I've spent my efforts on over the last few years is figuring out, what are the hardworking, evergreen, long blooming, pollinator attracting um, plants that have just like really nice form. They don't get
Yeah.
rangy. They stay compact. They stay compact or do their jobs. They screen the
Yeah.
fence, whatever needs to happen to make your
Yeah.
yard feel like a beautiful room. Really working with those primarily to create a backbone, and then creating really strategic pockets within those where you tuck in all your harvests, all that fun stuff that you want to cut and
Right.
harvest.
Because some of these residential properties you design on have acreage, but most are
Hmm.
probably urban, little postage stamp size
Yep. Yep.
spaces. I was thinking of pop up the photos from the book of
Oh
your
yeah, we got
garden.
pictures.
Yeah,
Hmm.
let's look at Leslie Bennett's garden, and then which is sort of at the end of the book, but then we'll go back and I want to talk about the principles. But I think since we've been talking about your beautiful garden, let's just take a look at it here
Yeah,
and
I would
see if
love to.
that shows up.
And I can also do a little video for you guys later to show
That
some
would
of
be
it.
great. Leslie, this structure with the Bergmansia hanging, I mean, talk about sensory.
Right?
That's gorgeous. That's so
Thank
sweet.
you. I love it so much. I mean, and that's literally that's where I am in the garden.
Mm,
A lot
mm.
of a lot of what I do when I think about the garden and garden design is like where do you want to be? That's one of the big questions we ask clients, and envisioning yourself sort of in your happy place in your garden. What does that feel like? And for me, like I knew this was it. I want to sit on a comfy couch. I want fragrance. I want lush foliage all around, and I just want to feel sort of immersed.
Yeah, I mean, you basically have a tropical botanical garden behind you when
Yep.
there's a fence and a neighbor immediately on the other side of it, but you wouldn't know that.
Yes. Yeah,
I
and you've
love
been
it.
to my house, Deborah. I am an
Yep.
urban fruit veil. It is postage stamp size, and I think my garden's a great example of. I mean, it's really a very small backyard, and there are 16 fruit trees worked into it. And I think a lot of people, if you think of a small backyard with 16 fruit trees, it would just be like a bunch of fruit trees, like you're
Like
almost
little
like a little
rows of an
orchard.
orchard. Yeah, no, I love
Exactly.
that.
Yeah, so I feel like that's sort of the innovation, and what's really exciting about it from a design perspective is that you can have 16 fruit trees in a small yard, and you can have a highly stylized design space um that really provides so much. Like, actually, I think if you scroll to the next page, maybe,
Yeah. Oh,
um
here's more of a full double page spread so we
yeah,
can.
or there's even an overhead one, or we can go picture by picture, but there's an overhead one that really shows like what's so exciting to me about this space is the programming.
Oh, here we
Actually,
go.
there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see it's a small space, and you
Oh
can
my
see.
gosh, it's so, it's so evocative because there's there's so much direction on how to walk through it, how to
Yeah.
view it, but it's tiny.
Yeah, it is, and it's got, I think, it's got space for. I really wanted a lot, and I think a lot of my clients want a lot out of their little space. I wanted to sit on the couch by myself and have nobody talk to me and like read a book, right? I also wanted a place to gather with my friends and have cute little evenings with my girlfriends drinking wine and chatting. I wanted to sit and eat at a table outside with my kids, my family, have easy family dinners. I wanted to grow food. I wanted a small lawn because I wanted my kids to be able to play, and I also really love just one of my great joys from my childhood is remembering lying in my parents' backyard on their little lawn. Like,
Sweet.
I feel like when I was like a teenager, just like going out like after school and laying down and decompressing. And I was like, yeah. So even though lawns are not, the thing to do,
Is this
I was
the
like, oh,
little
that's
lawn
what I
area
want.
here on the left?
Yep, that's it. And that's my office there, that little
Oh my
step.
goodness.
And see that window? That's my window that looks out. That's where you heard the
I
birds
love that
chirping.
little lattice, shade area, detail too, just because it kind of integrates with the other
Yep,
structures in the garden.
exactly. And yeah, it's a south facing wall there. So my office window gets a lot of sun. So I put that arbor up there for shade. And then it also supports a grapevine. So we've got grapes
Mm.
growing up there. So yeah, there's just all sorts of like layers of functionality and production and aesthetics and
Yeah.
experience built in.
Couple terms that you use that I wanna just ask you to riff on a little bit. You talked about stylized and
Mm,
a program. So are those sort of
mm.
your I don't know, terms of art for when you're working with a client or, how
Yeah,
you think?
yeah, programming is a word that Holly Colgian, who's the co-principal and co-leads Pine House with me, and also worked on the design of this garden. She is a landscape architect, and I think it's like a landscape architect term,
Mm.
programming. It's like, what's that? And she's like,
Yeah.
that's how you talk about all the different like things that you want to do in the garden. And it's my favorite word. I'm like, what's the programming? What are we gonna do? Because I think that's a
Kinda
big.
gives you a roadmap for designing if you have a program, right?
It does. Yeah, because
Yeah.
otherwise it's just a space. And so it's really like, that's a big question for our clients too. Like, so what do you actually want to do back here? What are your goals? And really outlining their vision for that. And then sort of literally carving out the space for that. And then, seeing how the plants kind of can support that, work around that. If you want a seating area, maybe we put a big fruit tree in so that you get some shade and some production. Yeah, so that's
Mm.
that's programming. It's a great word.
And then stylized, to me, I think there's so much intention in this bones and the I know that's an overused word, but like the materials, and this is a
Mhm,
real modern feeling garden because it's so
mhm.
linear, but then the plants just break up all the linear, what one
Yeah,
might feel too stuffy or too rigid. They
yeah.
just break it all up, right?
Yeah, and I think it is just really, you know, it kind of boiled for me, it just boiled like, just because you're growing food, it it can't not be beautiful, or it
Mm,
can still be beautiful. Just
yeah.
because you're growing flowers, it doesn't have to be, like, old-fashioned and cottagey.
Mhm.
Um, like, you can sort of you can use the materials you're gonna use, and you can have a very modern rose garden if you use some,
Yeah.
clean lines and maybe some, sharp cut concrete pieces, or, you can make things work just by how you style them.
Mm. Leslie, in this photo on the left, I see this sort of hallway in a way that you're walking into.
Mhm.
Are those wooden, retaining walls, or what are those?
Those are wooden raised vegetable beds.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, and I love that picture so much. And I mean, and even that is a great example of just vegetables being stylized a little bit, like having like you're growing veggies in this bed, but you can, still have nasturtiums trailing over the edge. You can have, different textures, different foliage textures
Yeah,
adjacent to each other.
bold foliage on the left there.
Yeah. And then, from sort of a materials perspective here, because I knew that I really wanted the plants to shine in our garden. So I kept the materials palette really simple, and we, did wooden raised vegetable beds. I wanted black, and then we did a black table. And then you can see the pergola behind is also black with that same redwood
Mm.
wood topping, and those are the only two hardscape. That and the sort of blonde gravel are the only materials in the garden, and that keeps it really simple, really repetitive, so that the wide array of plants can kind of shine without it feeling busy.
Well, before we leave this spread, I want to just ask you, on the bottom, on the right-hand side, you've got the sorrel
Yes,
plant,
there it is.
and this other one is a lemongrass plant. I mean, these are things that maybe non-Californians are afraid to grow, but maybe you
Hmm.
could grow them in a pot in the summer or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't
absolutely. I
know.
mean, they can be annuals. I think, the roselle is an annual, so I grow
Okay.
that as an annual here in California. So
Oh, okay.
you can grow that anywhere in the U.S. The lemongrass is a perennial, but it's fine to grow that as an annual as well, or put it in a pot and bring it indoors. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
and then the passion fruit is a crazy vine
Oh,
that
gorgeous.
is probably for the Californians.
Great.
But yeah,
Gorgeous.
so pretty.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm going to try to find the top of the book now while we're talking, just so we can kind of talk
Great.
about the principles.
Oh yes.
And then I want to talk about Black Sanctuary Gardens because you told me that several of your, I don't know, you call them clients or
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I know they're all friends, but
Assistants. Yeah, yeah, they are all friends now.
yeah,
Uh,
that you featured those in the book, and I feel like there's a sort of, again, a lot of listening that is required to design
mhm,
a garden for a specific owner and a specific user. So
mhm, mhm.
in the oh, there are so many beautiful photos in this book, but I'm just going to urge everyone to follow the link in our show notes and go order your own copy because it's a
Do it.
pretty special book. But what is a garden wonderland? So we started to talk about how you chose that word and all, but then you have sort
Mhm,
of um, some principles that you draw from when you're trying to walk someone through this process, including the reader who's probably going to be inspired to try to approach their own garden this way.
mhm.
Um, so maybe you could riff on these a little bit.
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, it was really this book was such an interesting process of I'm like, what is it that we're doing? Because it was really, I felt so excited about the work we were doing and really wanted to put it into a book, but sort of the intellectual challenge of breaking down like, what are we talking about? Why are these things important?
Well, I should
Um,
stop you there because this, being a book person myself, I'm curious. Was the original brief like, Lesley, let's just do a book showcasing all of your garden design work, and then you had to kind of create a framework, or like how did it all come together? Because you've got a decade of work that you could
yeah, yeah.
collect, right?
I mean, I think that was my original idea. I was like, I have all these amazing gardens that we've made and cherished. And I think you know this as a fellow gardener, like gardens don't stay the same. They don't last forever. It's like this most ephemeral piece of art. And I just felt like, sort of 9 years into some long-term client relationships and long-term garden relationships. And I was like, I just want to capture this. Like there's something really magical going on here. Um,
Well, and also, don't you have a maintenance division? Like, aren't you returning to these
mhm,
gardens all the time and
yeah.
seeing them evolve?
Yeah, so we're design, build, maintain. So yeah, we put the gardens in and then and our maintenance is both maintenance and kind of coaching, interpretation. So we end up, we're in the gardens every week or 2 weeks or month for years. We're talking with the clients because these are not like azaleas and boxwood. It's it's food. We're like, hey, you've got like a whole lot of kale. Like, what are we gonna do with that? We're really having like
I love it.
conversations. It's pretty intimate about how people are living and spicing their food and doing things. And so we've really, I've grown. I mean, that's why I love my work so much is that I have ended up with these really close relationships with both the land in these various gardens and the people that live with them. And my ultimate goal is really for the people who live with their gardens to have a relationship with their garden, which they do, with our support. So yeah, that's what I was really excited about, and that's sort of what the book initial concept was. And as I talked about it with Julie Chai, she was like, "We gotta expand that. We gotta explain
Tell
more about
tell a
what's going
story
on."
here. Yeah.
Yeah, and also, and our original editor Lisa Regal was so great with this too. She's like, "We let's make this DIY. Like, let's explain how to do this." So we grew the whole first half of the book into like explaining the theory and then the actual steps of how to. Um, which was, and it was a lot longer. I thought it would be one chapter, but and said it's half the book. And
It's
because
special.
it's complex. It's
Yeah.
complex what we're doing, kind of distilling, and important. It is what makes the gardens magical. And
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, so that was
It's a like a lifestyle philosophy. When you said you are coaching people, I can see where a lot of your clients want a beautiful garden and want a functioning, nourishing garden, but they don't have the background you have. So
mhm,
they're like a frozen, like, what do I do with this stuff? And that's where you
yeah.
come in as a coach.
Right. And frankly, and that's what I love about my team too, is like I also don't even have all the skills. I'm sort of this generalist at this point. But on our team, we have a woman who is a professional florist and like cutting, and now she is our sort of cutting flower designer, Lana Lopez. And we have a landscape architect, and we have a stone builder, and we have a beekeeper, and we have you know, everybody's got their
Oh
own
my
specialty.
gosh.
And we have,
It's amazing.
somebody who's super into cooking. We have someone who's a herbalist and healer. So it's sort of like this really awesome hive mind where we're always learning from each other. But for our clients, we can be like, oh, this calendula, like here's a recipe for this salve or whatever. Um, yeah, and I just love that we're all like, it's this acknowledgement that we can't all hold all the information. We
Yeah.
have to talk to
Yeah.
each other and connect. And that's how we can bring this great value to people and
Yeah.
help them to really connect with their gardens.
Yeah. So
So,
make plants part of your daily life. Principle one. That kind of, I'm all in.
yep.
You don't have to convince me, but I'm sure it's part of coaching as well. Like
Mhm.
this is a lifestyle commitment that you're making by investing in a garden, and we want it to be worth it to you.
Yeah, well, and I think that really came specifically out of I took an herbalist class because I wanted to learn more about plant medicine and was introduced to this idea of plant allies, and the fact that all these plants we live with, so many of them, all of them, are allies to our human lives, and they help us in so many different ways. And there's a medicine for each plant, um, and that was, I don't know, I just love that concept. I was like,
Mm,
yeah, they are our allies. They can
mm,
help us, and they help
mhm.
us in the obvious ways of like providing shade or fruit, and then they help us in the less obvious ways that you maybe need to Google or ask an herbalist. Like, what does this leaf, if I steep it,
Yeah.
what will it do for me? And I mean,
It's so important. Like our ancestors, you viewed plants as essential to their daily life, right? Like
yeah, yeah,
for everything, and we're going, "Oh, it's pretty," And
exactly. Well, and I think my time in Jamaica informed that so much. Like there's so many plants. Everybody has all these sort of out in the country. You've got these local remedies. That plant. Whenever I would walk with my ex down there, they'd be, oh, that plant. You take that when you got a cough. That plant, you give it to your kid when they're acting up. Like that plant.
All
And
that wisdom. Oh my gosh.
so much
Yeah.
wisdom. And that I feel like we have it too. We just don't, like I love like the pineapple guava. I've loved that plant for years as a landscape plant because it's a great evergreen, compact gray shrub that like works well in the landscape. It also produces delicious fruit. But then I learned the leaves, you can brew the leaves and it's like an antidepressant. And then same with passion fruit. Like you can do obviously it's a great vine. It screens a fence really nicely. The flowers are gorgeous. You can eat the fruit, but the leaves are like one of the top like nervine supporters and is really great for insomnia. So that is what I do. I
Wow.
pick my passion fruit. It doesn't taste good, but I pick my passion fruit leaves and it supports my sleep. So I feel like, and those are the kinds of
Leslie,
things.
you are the first person who introduced me to
Mhm.
pineapple guava when I toured
Oh yeah.
gardens with you like 10 years ago in the Bay Area
Totally, totally. Well, and
because you were
you're
such a
absolutely
fan of it. You were advocating for it.
I really was. I dedicated pages to it in Stephanie in my first book. Yeah, and I still love it for all those landscape reasons. And now I'm like, oh, this plant is my friend for other reasons too. And I
Yeah.
think that's sort of it's a journey for everybody. And I think that's really what that first principle is like
Yeah.
surround yourself with the plants and then learn about them. And over time, they're going to work their way into your life in different ways. And that's the gift.
Yeah. I love that. It just becomes second nature, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
And then surround yourself with beauty and make space for connection. You've alluded to this in terms of when we looked at your garden, those were principles that you were very intentional about.
Mm-hmm.
But it's sort of like you're giving people permission to consider that these are part of the features of the garden that is wonderful for them, of a wonder garden.
Yeah. Well, and I think that I came my sort of my story of getting into gardening, I was a lawyer first and then I went and worked on organic farms. And I was in the organic farm movement world, living on trailers in the woods, apprenticing on farms, and living that sort of deep hippie off the grid life for a couple of years, which was amazing. And what I noticed though is like in sort of the organic edible farm, it's like this thing of like, well, we can only do like it's like this idea that you can't like beauty is frivolous and like that's
Yeah.
not the goal. Like we're saving the world, we're being
Yeah.
utilitarian, we're doing, and I find that with a lot of people who are growing food or into organics, it's like this very oriented toward like consciousness and like making the right choice.
The
And somehow
pragmatism.
beauty, yeah, and beauty gets lost. Like there's something wrong with it. Like it's just wrong. But I feel like that's so wrong. And I feel like beauty is not just for people with money. It's not just for people who don't care about the world. Like beauty is so inherent to all of us and we
Yeah.
all need it. And
I
it's
love
different
that.
for all of us. So yeah, just like not, and I see it, oh gosh, I see it with like so many of those, there's like so many nonprofit projects that are like bringing food to like the inner city and they're like the ugliest gardens that are productive, but I'm like,
Right.
why doesn't everybody get something beautiful? Like what's happening here?
I love that,
um,
and you're so right. I mean, what I when I first learned that lesson in gardening was in like around 2008 when the bottom fell out of the economy, and there was this massive swing toward growing your own food.
right.
Um, and like being a book reviewer, I must have received 40 books about vegetable gardening in 1 year to
Yes,
review, and I'm
yes.
like, okay, so the pendulum has swung so far away from ornamental beauty that anyone who cared about ornamental beauty in the garden was sort of a slacker. Like we were
Yeah,
lightweights. We didn't we like you said, we weren't saving the world. But
right.
I feel like pollinators were sort of our reward. Like, oh
Saving
well, we've got
grace.
us.
Yes.
Yeah, if we talk about pollinators, then we get to have beauty.
Totally. But they attract the pollinators. It's okay.
How
Yeah,
perfect that you've got that butterfly there on the verbena just to reinforce that point.
yes, exactly. And the pollinator part is important, But I mean, frankly, like I plant those salvias because they are so darn pretty and they bloom for 9 months and they make my eyes happy. I'm so glad that, also the butterflies and bees enjoy them. But yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like this thing where we like erase our need for beauty is really weird and like
Yeah.
not there's something like very I think because my background is also the environmental movement,
Yeah.
and having studied environmental justice, um and the environmental movement, so much of that conservation um environmentalist talk is about like what is it, like reducing in a way that like
Yeah.
hurts, you know?
It's very
Like
it's
it's like you
it's
gotta
very
feel the pain.
yeah, very utilitarian, and
Yeah.
I love what you said about it's all in a way, it's like beauty access, like, everyone deserves to be in a beautiful environment because nature provides it. We're the ones who've
Mhm.
messed it up, and
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah,
That's
and there's
beautiful.
no reason you can't have both. Like you can have beauty and be sustainable and be careful and thoughtful. So yeah.
Mhm.
So anyway, so I
Mhm.
had I had to dedicate a whole principle to that
I
and like
love
yell
it.
about it sometimes. Sorry if I get a little excited. I'm like, ah.
No, I'm totally
Uh,
inspired. I love it. And making space for connection, you also talked about with it relating to your garden, but
yep.
back to your concern about helping coax out people's family stories and all
Hmm.
through the
Hmm.
garden. Um, you're saying it's
Well, I
okay to
think
be intentional, right?
yeah, I mean, I think the connection part, the family stories actually fits, like goes more into, I sort of wedged that into principle 4 on the next page. Principle 3 about connection
Mm,
is really, I think, one of the easiest parts. It's like, hey, when you
okay.
grow food, like you realize, and I guess this also, when I started gardening and started this business, I really just wanted people to be like better environmentalists. And I really wanted people to care a little more about the planet.
Mm,
And I sort of
mm.
have learned, you can't just like go around yelling that and telling people to do better. Like they have to realize. And I feel like growing food is this really tangible experience of like, oh, like the plants are eating what's in the soil and I'm eating the plant, so I better care about what goes into the soil.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I once accused you of being a little subversive in that if
yes.
you preached the organic, because of course your vegetables, you're eating them, so you have to be organic. You kind
Hmm.
of like social engineering, you got your clients to be organic in everything
Yeah.
without having to preach at them. And I thought that was
Yeah.
brilliant.
Great. Thank you. No, and that I've always felt like, you know what, that's the route we're going to take. We're going to make this so desirable that you just want to go chemical free.
Yeah,
And
good point.
that's yeah. And so anyway, so in the connection, I think, you grow your food, you know how you're connected to the earth. You're gonna have an abundance, you're gonna share it with people. And I think flowers are such a great
Yeah.
like version of that because I think just having flowers in your garden to cut and to be able to show up to anybody's house, any event, anything, like flowers are always the right gift.
Mm,
And it can be like a handful of them. Like I think just having that at your fingertips and being able to show your care to people in a really easy
yeah.
way is, I mean,
Yeah.
that's like
Gardeners get it, but for somebody who's maybe never had a garden before, it's again, it's like a revelation.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you always make that a point, and I really appreciate that because like you said, you might have started at the food, food growing level, but
Hmm.
it's feeding our bodies and souls in a different way with flowers and
Hmm. It's so silly to separate them. Like they're not in real life, they're not separated. Like why did we humans separate them? And
right. Right. And the fact that you have someone on staff who's a professional florist who can really who probably does a ton of other things, but that's like one of that person's sort of duties of
yeah,
making sure the gardens all have something that the clients can cut. I love that.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
here we can't leave for a principle for fortify your sense of belonging without talking about this sweet little one who's uh,
Sweet little
in,
Zita. Yep, my daughter Zita, who's now 5.5, but is I think around 4 in this picture.
oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, and this
Your
is a picture
kids
of
are
her.
keeping you rooted in your garden for sure. I love
They
it.
are. They are. Yeah, it's been really sweet. We put the garden in 2019, right before the pandemic. Um, and when they were like 1 and
Mm.
3 kind of thing. So
Yeah.
they've
They've
really
grown
grown
up.
up with it, and
Wow.
it shows. It shows. I'm so thankful for that.
Wow.
But yeah, so this is little Zita planting some sorrel, that same Jamaican plant that I talked about, and she this year we're doing watermelon. She's so excited. It's her favorite fruit right now, so she's so excited about growing watermelon.
Okay, well, how are you gonna do watermelon in your tiny garden? I'm just curious, like, do you have little you know, rip something out to make space for it?
I'm gonna stick it in the edge of that bed, kind of like right there
Oh,
where that
good.
little pot is. I'm gonna
It's
stick it
you're
right
going to
in, and
grow
it's
a
gonna
few watermelon, not a crop.
yeah, it's gonna be a dwarf watermelon size, and it's gonna be like tiny because our it doesn't get that hot here, and it'll trail over the edge of the bed and block the whole path. It'll be I won't take photos of it for Instagram. But it's gonna be great.
That's so great.
For me, like this idea of stories and that we get to find our stories, build our stories, and kind of and grow them. And truly, the things that you plant and choose to include in your garden are the things that you will end up doing, and you'll be doing them with your kids
Mm,
or with
mhm,
elders in your family, and you get to really create rituals and practices for yourself
mm,
that actually define who you are and define your kids' memories. And I think it's really exciting to
yeah.
be aware and intentional of that and realize you get to shape that.
Mm, I love it. All right, so before we wrap up, because we could go on all day,
We
I
could.
wanna look at a couple of the gardens that you've designed that, were part of the Black Sanctuary initiative, but also I just think in general, show people how the book is organized because you kind of have a fun, almost like case study, the way you
Hmm.
talk about, how you've, you know, worked with a client to create their space. So
Yeah.
this is Courtney Plant Medicine. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about how this garden came into being.
I am happy to do that. Yeah, I mean, the Black Sanctuary Gardens project we've been working on, I started it in 2019 and integrated it into my business, and it's a project to collaborating with Black women in Oakland to create gardens that reflect them. Um, and sort of create a space that's supportive of them. That's sort of the
Mm,
like, we all deserve a garden, like let's do that. And sort of
I
there's a
love it.
financial aspect to it of meeting folks where there are. And we have funding built into my business model so that everybody who works with Pine House can support this project. Um,
Love
so
it.
some of the projects have funding, some are independently funded, but that's a part of it is to actually just make sure that we all have these beautiful gardens to live with. And then the part that I especially love is sort of the art. There's an artistic portion of it, which is that I believe that the world needs more images of us, Black women, in our um, birthright, in connection, photos of us in plant spaces in connection with the natural world, sort of
Yes.
shining and being our best selves. And I feel like the
Mm.
world, society as it's structured, does not give us enough of those images. So I was like, let me get some more of those out there.
The whole book, Leslie, it's like it's just so diverse. I love it so much that there's ethnicities and
Hmm.
ages and, what defines a family, and, you know, it's
Yeah,
just there's no book like this, and I just have to give you a shout out for that because you and
thank
Julie
you.
and Rachel were super intentional using your
Yeah,
power as creators to make a book that shows the world you wanna see, and I loved
thank
that
you.
about it. Really
Yeah, thank
amazing.
you. And I agree. I certainly have not seen a lot of that out there, and that was a big shared intention of ours. Um, and
Mm,
I think it is um, as a Black, Asian, and Jewish team. We're bringing an intersectional perspective to the world of gardening that
right,
I
I
think,
love that. I
yeah, and so
love that your team was just kind of reflecting back, this book reflects back on you as well.
yeah, yeah. So we were like, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to make everything really authentic and approachable, but also super inspiring and beautiful. And I think, the Black Sanctuary Garden had been going for several years by the time we started this book. Um, and has sort of been just it's naturally integrated into my business. So,
Yeah,
we just do the projects through the year and scatter. So, um, they're just part of our client base. And so similarly, they're just part of the gardens that were available to photograph.
yeah.
And but it was so nice because we actually, for several of these, we actually had not yet had the chance to take the portraits that I was talking about, these like beautiful portraits of
Yeah.
the project participants in their gardens. And so for Courtney's garden, you can see like she is a therapist and very much
Wow.
into serving sort of non-binary populations, brown, BIPOC, non-binary
Mhm.
folks in Oakland. So a very marginalized group of people that she's serving so amazingly with such innovative techniques. She's super like she came to us with so much plant knowledge. She was doing shaman journeys. She's knows all the plant medicine. Like I learned tons from her.
I love
But she
that. So
did
it's real
not know
collaborative.
everything. Yeah, super collaborative. Like I walked away from this having learned so much. And she had this little backyard space that she wanted to, she also had 2 kids. She wanted to grow plant medicine. She wanted to grow food. And we created this backyard space that was a true retreat and sanctuary
Mm,
for her.
mm.
And she's out there singing to her plants. In the story, she talks about her rituals that she does with them. And it's incredible.
Yeah.
Really what I love about this project and all of them is that they really just feel like collaborations of,
Yeah.
and I think another big part of is really like showing, that Black women are not a monolith. Like,
Yeah.
what does a Black woman's garden look like? What is a Black sanctuary garden? Like anything, because
Right.
we are everything. And so, that Courtney's garden is very oriented toward medicine.
Yeah.
The next garden that you're turning to, Frederica's garden, who happens to be
Mm.
Frederica Newton, the widow of Huey Newton, the co-founder of the Black Panther Party here in Oakland. So she's a legend, a
What a
hero,
privilege to work with her, Leslie.
such a
Wow.
privilege, and she's the
Ah,
most amazing person ever. Like pure rainbows and sunshine. Like she's
mm,
fabulous. Um, and the work that she does is complicated and hard. Her work is around sort of carrying the legacy of the Black Panther Party and honoring that history. So she really wanted a place that would just give her a place to breathe and a place to be calm, to be inspired, to replenish. And she's super into art, specifically local Black artists and just emerging artists generally. So she had an amazing art collection that some of it she wouldn't fit in her house or didn't make
mhm.
sense in her house. So she wanted to incorporate some of it outside. And so this became a garden that really, I mean,
Her own
it stands,
gallery.
yeah, exactly. It stands on its own, but its purpose is really to serve as a gallery for the
Mm.
artwork as well.
Tell me about this wall, kind of house-shaped wall. That is
Yeah.
amazing.
Isn't that super cool? Yeah, she had that commissioned again by a local craftsperson. Um, and it was on its own. When we got there, we're like, oh, that's super cool. And what's happening here? So
You made it work, Leslie. It looks so
yeah,
pretty with that little living room set in front of it. Like it becomes talk about a space. It's like the
exactly.
really amazing.
Exactly. And yeah, so it's really a space where she can go out alone and recharge, or she can have family or community come over and gather. But yeah, and she's just amazing. But the garden's amazing. I love it so much. And I love
Mm,
that it's just entirely, I had no idea what either of these gardens would look like. Just as with any project, I had no idea
yeah.
what it would really end up looking like. And it's so cool to have this visual demonstration of um all the amazingness,
Yeah.
to get to see
Stunning.
Courtney and
S-
Frederica in their gardens.
So stunning. Thank you so much for telling us a little bit about this. I love that like there's no surface untouched in this garden. Like the
Yeah.
vertical spaces are a place for the art that
Yep.
Frederica has collected. But
Yep.
it's back to a lush, beautiful garden space. It is gotta be where she spends so much time, especially being in the Bay Area where you can be
Oh
outdoors
yeah.
more often, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and there's so many little elements, like that shot there where she's harvesting the green beans.
Mm,
Behind that is an apple tree, and
mm,
there's a lot of roses in this garden. And she had two really distinct memories of like her dad being really into growing fruits and vegetables and having an apple tree that she would enjoy when she was a kid, and her
mm.
mom loved roses and had a rose garden, and she really wanted to bring her memories of her parents into the garden.
Yeah.
And she's got them with her now.
Oh, beautiful. Leslie,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Those are wonderful to just kind of give people a little teaser of what they can find in this
Yay!
massive book. Let's see, it's like
It is
200 and something
massive.
pages, right?
Julie and I were both
265
like,
pages.
how did this get so big? There's so much. Like, wwhy am I still writing? I've written so much.
Well,
But
speaking of that, before we say goodbye, what are you going to work on now that this is done? I know you're just hot off the press, so you're talking to a lot of people and
oh
shit.
no, I know what I'm working on. I'm working on rest. That's what
Oh,
I'm working on.
good,
I'm
good.
working on taking a nap.
Well,
Um,
Garden Wonderland is showing up in, many online magazines and print magazines. I've seen several articles already, and I'm just glad that it's getting out in the
yeah,
world. And it's like you're doing the work of garden journalism for these publications that
that is
don't
correct.
show diversity and that are like, oh, why aren't they? Because if you didn't have photos, there maybe would, you know,
Yep,
look monochromatic. And
yep.
I'm glad. I mean, even though you had to do the hard work, you're at least generous with getting these
Yeah.
stories out into the world.
No, thank you for naming. I mean, that's the service. I waited. I wrote my first book, or co-authored my first book 10, 12 years in 2013, so a long
Yeah.
time ago.
Wow.
And
11 years ago.
yeah, so I waited and waited. I really wanted to wait until I knew exactly what I wanted to give to the world. And it takes a lot of work to write a book,
Yeah.
and I really feel like the world needed some more diverse representation, some beautiful images of all of us in plant connected spaces,
Yeah.
and I think we all need more tools to create spaces that support us so that we can. I mean, the world is a tough place right now, so I feel like wherever we can create these little pockets that bring some softness and some
Yeah.
relief, and just allow us to take a deep breath and show up better for the folks in our lives.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's what I was aiming for, and I hope that comes through.
Well, I will share all the details in our show notes at soulflowerspodcast.com about how you can order Garden Wonderland. And I'll also share the link to your June 2017 first appearance on the podcast when you were a speaker at the very first Slow Flower Summit, and August 2020 when we talked about Black Sanctuary Gardens, because those are fun conversations. And we didn't go back into your whole journey from lawyer to garden designer for that reason, because people can go back and listen to those.
It's a fun story though.
So I want to just compliment you and close with something that you said that really struck me as your leadership role in horticulture, in environmental and design worlds. And now when you talked about the hive mind, is that the right term you used?
That is what I said. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just first of all, I love that. I suppose I've heard it before, but I never heard about it in the context of running a team. And so as an artist and a creator of Pine House Edible Gardens, you're the leader, but you are not. I mean, I just have to compliment you. You're talking about bringing in people who maybe have skills that you don't have
Yeah.
and letting them soar. Like, you must be the best manager in the world. I want to work for you. I mean, to
Thank you.
nurture that creativity in a team is not easy. And I think anyone listening to this who has a floral or farming or creative business can draw some of those lessons.
Yeah.
And I don't know, is that just how you were raised, or like, where did you come up with this sort of ability to, I mean, I know it's not all like, butterflies and bunnies, but like, how do you intentionally run a team like that and, support yourself?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for asking. No, I think it's a huge part of what I do and a huge part of what drives me. I mean, I love gardens and design, and I also love my team and like holding this team together, and it is sort of a practice of holding. And I think I make many missteps, but I think I'm a good boss, and I think what I bring is that same thing of like it's like what happens when Black women lead. Like,
Right. Exactly.
I mean, I went to Harvard for undergrad, like the whitest, most rigid, most
Patriarchal joint in the world. Yeah.
patriarchal system. I worked in corporate law firms, which are so hierarchical, so patriarchal, and where, systematically, white men take credit for everybody's work. Like they didn't do it, like the whole team did. And I feel like I lived that like on the junior
Wow.
associate level, and I was like, this is horrible. And it just makes you not want to stick with it either. You lose,
Yeah.
it feels like bad business. You lose your best talent. Anyway,
So
so
true.
I have always wanted to be different, and I think I've really practiced at that really, really hard. And I mean, it's a joking thing. I'm a good boss, and I'm not a bad boss, but I have problems too. But I think probably the biggest thing I work on is, trying to name people, trying to give credit, trying to make it clear, like, I don't do this on my own. We're a team of 21, actually.
Wow, Leslie, it's amazing.
Yeah, the design team is 5 of us: Holly Colgian, Lana Lopez, Jessica Comerford, Anna Osnowitz, our builder, Jorge, who is incredible. I mean, none of this would happen without him and his crew. And then our whole maintenance team, who, again, like, these gardens look fantastic because they're super skilled.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, and they teach me all the time. So anyway,
mm.
so yeah, I think it has definitely been a practice that, but I'm really proud of it, and I think it has made our team stronger. Um, and I make
Yeah.
mistakes, and I apologize too.
Yeah, but you're modeling for others that you interact with, for your children, for your young employees who maybe this is one of their first jobs and who might go on to do their own thing in the future. And
Hmm.
you're mentoring and modeling in a way that I really wanted to end on that and just say
Well, thank
thank
you.
you and thanks for naming it like the hive mind. I know what to call it
Yeah.
now.
Thank you.
Um,
And I'll just say I think so much of it is like being like, and for myself, like I feel like I've actively practiced this too. It's like, oh well, if I name everybody else, will I be disappeared? Will I erase myself? And it's like this tension that I think we all have. It's like you want to hold on to it, but then if you hold on, you lose it.
yeah,
So it's like kind of learning to just be okay, and like,
yeah.
actually nobody does anything by themselves.
Right.
Like that's actually
Elevating
just not
elevating
true.
others elevating others
Yeah.
does not take away from you. So, oh,
Yeah.
good lesson for the day. I don't want this to end, but I'm gonna let you go. And if we have time, we'll show a video
Great.
that Leslie might film this weekend for me. And if not, we've
We'll
shown a
see.
lot of groovy photos that will
We
get everyone
have.
running to the plant store this weekend to see what they can lush, something lush and nutritious and nurturing that we can all add to our gardens.
I
Thank you
hope
so
so.
much, Leslie.
Yeah, thank you so much, Deborah. See you soon, I hope.
Okay, I hope so.
Hi, I'm Leslie Bennett. I'm the founder and owner of Pine House Edible Gardens and the co-author of, along with Julie Chai, of the recently published Garden Wonderland, which I am so thrilled about and was so happy to get to talk with Deborah Prinzing about recently. I thought I would take you on a quick mini tour of my garden here in Oakland. It's a really chilly day. It was so warm yesterday, but today is cold, so we're gonna make this short, a mini tour. But I wanted to show you around. So I'm gonna switch the camera and give you a little peek. Okay, I'm still here, but now you're looking at my garden. This is my backyard. I'm actually gonna walk over to the entrance, just because this is one of my favorite things about my garden, which is this little entrance where I come out of my back kitchen door and walk out. And I just love this entrance, which actually normally has, see these cables here, those are for passion fruit, a fruiting passion fruit to grow on. Here I've got this really pretty fuchsia old Berkeley, which I'm training to arch over, and I love the way that this creates this little sense of entrance, and you walk in and wonder what's happening back here, and it's a wonderland. So here's a little overview. If we go to the right here, this is my office. So every day I walk out, I squeeze past this little fig tree, and I walk to my office. I'll show you more in a bit. There's a small lawn, a little micro lawn, just like I talk about in the book. There's my seating area. I haven't put the seat cushions yet because it's still a little cold and rainy. Dining in the middle, and 2 veggie beds, and that's sort of the edge of the garden, my little irrigation box. anyways, one of the things I think is coolest about my garden is that it's a really pretty small space, but it's got a lot of different programming, a lot of spaces to do the different things I want to do. So here's another view of my little backyard office with my window looking out on my garden. My dining area, the southern sun is blocked by this guava tree, which makes really nice fruit in sort of February, March. My 2 veggie beds, which are ready for planting. I just got a little help from some of the folks on my gardening team, and they came and prepped the soil, got it all ready, and I'll be planting tomatoes, basil. These ranunculus are popping, and I'm planning on doing a lot of flowers this year. There's some sweet peas growing. I'm really excited about doing a whole bunch of floret zinnia. I got some floret zinnia seeds and hopefully some dahlias as well. So that's what I'm excited about for something new and fun this year. And then back to this veggie bed. So anyway, it's sort of an in-between time in my backyard, but I'm excited. There's a fig tree. So here is a beautiful pincushion, the leucospermum, that's in bloom right now. I think one of the most exciting things from my perspective, hi, still here, still talking. One of the things I love most about my garden is that it's small, but there's so much fruit tucked in here. There's actually like 16 fruit trees, or sources of fruit. So I think I'll point out a few of them because that's my favorite. Look at these little cuties. This is the tiny little columnar apple tree. It's a little hard to see, but there it is, just tucked in. It's about, I don't know, 4 feet tall right now, and it's got a bunch of little apple blossoms. Each of those will become an apple. And it's just tucked in there. I just cut back these Coleonema that are kind of old. I'll probably actually replace them soon. But the deciduous fruit trees that are tucked in a bunch of evergreen material. There's the passion fruit, which usually vines up the side of the house. There is a fig. What do I have? I have got a grapevine growing up the trellis. And that provides shade on my office window, which, as I think I mentioned, is a south-facing window. So it's pretty hot. It's really helpful to have some afternoon shade from that grape in the spring and summer. Looking more toward the middle, this is a pomegranate tree, and I love that placed in the middle because it's got sort of it's a smaller tree, and I usually keep it a little thinner so it's a little see-through. It's a little full right now. This big, beautiful Pluot Doppeldandy, which I love. There's a rose tucked up on the wall behind it. I'm loving this foliage right now. It's so pretty and glossy and red, the brand new foliage. This is a really cool one called Tropical Lightning, and it's this really pretty pink and orange and red variegated bloom. My neighbor's Opuntia, which I just love that texture behind the plum tree. Bunch of just foliage texture here. Pittosporum Marjorie Channon, Ligularia gigantea, Astilia, a really cool aloe. There's a lemon tucked in there, because why not? But look, it's fruiting, even in the shade. As we go over here, I've got blueberries tucked in as an evergreen edger. They're pretty productive, even in the shade. I just had a gopher kill a tree there, so that's a goner. Oh, look at these beauties. I love the Brugmansia overhead. They're really fragrant, and in our climate, they just keep blooming and blooming. So that's really fun. Let's see, what else do I have to eat in here? The guava tree, which is something most people haven't seen that often. It's a subtropical. This one's called Mexican cream. And I really love, this is sort of coming out of winter. And in the winter, the leaves turn this kind of dark burgundy color. And then new leaves come and they're sort of a fresher green. So anyway, it's a tree that changes through the year. What else do I have? I've got a rhubarb down there. It's gonna pop up soon with the geums. I love these geums, they're the first ones. to pop up. This is sort of my little junky corner, but I've got an avocado. It's a little cado, and it produces a little fruit for me. Some pineapple guava. My quince tree, which I'm in love with. Look at this gorgeous quince bloom. And the tree itself is just gorgeous. So I have that on the side here. Some rosemary, some lavender. And then back to these beds. And I think one of the things that Pine House is so well known for and that I love to do is just to include, this is such a great example actually, just to include some decorative elements on the sides of the bed. So I've got this really pretty nasturtium, the Alaska nasturtium with the really gorgeous variegated leaves and the edible flowers. This is an Icelandic poppy. Excuse the East Oakland helicopters always flying overhead. Oh my gosh, my sweet pea is in bloom. So it doesn't look that pretty against this gray sky, but that is the Nimbus variety, which is such a pretty variety. There you can see it a little better. Gorgeous, variegated purple and white bloom. Love that one. So that's gonna just start blooming for the next couple of weeks, and then when that's out, I'll probably put a tomato in. But anyways, yeah, I love including blooms, both ornamental and edible. One's like this little snapdragon and the edible nasturtium. We've got a scented geranium over here. And some strawberries that are all ready to pop off and grow over the edge of the beds. Anyway, that's what's going on back here right now. Just a little between seasons tour of the garden. I think you can see there's a lot of evergreen material that kind of holds the space through the seasons. And I'm a little late on my veggie planting. It's April 20 something. Then I haven't gotten anything in yet, which is fine. But I love that because I've got all this evergreen structure and because I've got a few little green perennial items on the edge of the beds, it still looks fine until I'm ready to go. So anyway, that's my tour. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm hoping this weekend with my kids to get the veggies, the warm season veggies and flowers planted up. So I'll do a little update in maybe this weekend or in a few weeks when things are growing. Thanks so much and see you soon. Bye.